Is Mimi your given name?
I wish it's Maria. But I've never been called Maria, just always Mimi for some reason.
Yeah.
Since I was like a kid, I think I just liked it better myself. Okay.
Have you seen Rent?
Yeah, everybody. Oh, or if I tell people my name's Maria, then they'll either sing West Side Story or Sound of Music. It's really great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like Mimi from Rent kind of. Would you be okay with your aesthetics? You would be a little upset with that.
Minus the, new part. Okay. There we go. Alrighty, so I'll see as much as possible.
Oh, okay. I thought we did projection. It's okay.
I should have asked, but this is okay. Alright.
Honestly, I'll just use it as my nothing.
Yeah. Okay, it'll you know how to use it, up, down. Okay. You want this chair?
No. Alright. For my part.
She didn't, yeah. I know he was a part of it, I would write. I just wanted to make sure that no one had anything. That means after, Dominique, we can do discussion. I'm fine with that. Yeah, if you're fine with that, I'm fine. That's fine. Or maybe another day. I feel like that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I can try, I think someone will be mad if I did. Okay. So many times we're still Gary, we're good to go on table then.
You have one.
A porn shop was, I was going to look up about it,
You got one, Mike?
ratings to see what they say. Because I don't want to get something that doesn't, look right. And I paid money for it, and then I got still trouble. You know what I mean?
You got one? Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, except for it was, from the leads that you showed me. Remember? I assume that would be okay, Okay. So we'll be in touch with, and let's work on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Call the meeting to order in a few minutes, and as we give everybody time to go over the minutes and see if anything jumps out on that we should have corrected before we vote them into the official record.
Can I let it in this one? You guys know what you're doing.
If you want a discrepancy in the minutes, but it's minor. I won't even pretend to know how to run that.
Now entering quick touch.
Right, definitely not. All right, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. I've asked everyone real quick if they'd take time to go over the minutes, and we'll get this meeting started. Okay. I call this meeting to order. I would like to thank our guests, Mike and Amelia, that she was in our committee years ago and is thinking about trying and getting rejoining again. Thank you for taking the time to go over the minutes and okay. Wanted me to remind our purpose is to provide expertise on the impact of COC policies, programs, and grant applications. Like if we see a policy that's being detrimental to the homeless community, elderly or such, then that information is supposed to come to our committee and then we pass it to the board. All right, so basically we are the advisors, because if anybody's ever looked into the COC, people on the board and on the COC, people that are CEOs of major service providers, health providers, they've never experienced homelessness. So we are their experts, just for clarity. Did anybody have a chance to look over the minutes of the last meeting? I only see one small discrepancy, and it's very, very minor. This is my daughter Debbie, and her and I have she's been helping with the bike ministry, and it says electric bike ministry and regular manual pedal. That's the only thing I can see in the minutes. Does anyone seen any other errors that they're aware of? Norm, anything? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Second the motion?
I don't know that we have a
I would say no, we're missing two main key players that I'm aware of. Charmaine and Jack are out for medical reasons, and I completely understand. So, Sherry can't be here. I can't go into detail, but it's medical with her family, and she needs to be there for them right now. So, I figured we would just kind of live through it as best we can. I was going to have her do a presentation of our strategic plan. That's what's in the back of your, feel free when you take these home to go over it, and I'll get Sherry to do that presentation at that point. But for right now, she needs to be with her family. It's something serious, and that's about as far as I can go. Okay. Did I have a second? Do we have? The approving the minutes?
You're not formed.
I don't think we have a quorum, so we'll
No
have
quorum?
to approve them next meeting.
Okay.
I'll
Well,
put those in the meeting minutes that we can approve them
okay.
due to attendance.
Okay.
So I guess after that, we can move.
Fine. Okay. If we can't go to the plan review, we do have a presentation involved with the storm season coming up. Some of our friends in the homeless community will be looking for us for information on where they can go, what possible shelters are available. There is information online. I intended to bring a printout and give everybody a printout. It identifies the shelters that will be activated in the evacuation and storm conditions. It also identifies whether they are a pet-friendly, or special needs, or whatever. I figured that would be very constructive information for us to have. Because, I mean, for instance, okay. Anyhow, it's the idea is to make sure come on. Anyhow, I apologize. I was going to print those out. It was something totally that I was going to do and hand out. And honestly, I've just been busy for the last week and I haven't had a chance. But I promise you, I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of that. You never know when you're going to run into somebody that, let's say they have special needs. They have a CPAP or they have a little poo-poo dog or whatever. They need to have some kind of direction, you know, give them a list of 4 or 5 of the shelters. You know, try these first in the event of evacuations. That way you don't have them running around to a lot of places. Well, we don't take animals, or, you know, you got to go to special needs. It turns into a whole circus. But the object is we want people to be able to respond in a storm in an efficient and quick manner, get them a place out of harm's way. Fortunately, I don't have it on here. Would you like to?
You ready?
Yes.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dominique Randall. I work for Pinellas County in their Human Services Department. I'm going to go over a few different things, but I want this to be a conversation. So if you guys have any questions, please just speak up, let me know. Casual setting, I brought a few different resources and want to talk through some of those. So I only had 6 of these and can just luckily enough there's 6 of you guys. bags. So I was pretty excited about it. So it's a little flashlight, pen, and kind of like a torch. I don't know if there's like a lantern or a flashlight or a pen. So whether you keep it or pass it on to somebody else.
You got batteries.
It even has a battery in it. Look at that. So I'm going to try and speak up, and then, like I said, please let me know. I know it's a good. It's hard not to keep one for myself. Sorry. There's I got so many bags too. You can take a couple with you guys and take them home. So
That really is so cool.
So like I said, I work in human services, but I work very closely with our emergency management, specifically for how we support the unhoused and shelter residents in Pinellas County. So I'm going to kind of straddle between emergency management and how we coordinate it with our shelters and, like I said, unhoused in the community. So sheltered and unsheltered. So emergency management is mandated by the state to operate shelters in the event of a disaster like a hurricane or tropical storm when the weather gets high enough. In the past, there are 24 municipalities in Pinellas County, Clearwater, St. Pete, Bel Air Beach, St. Pete Beach, 24 of those, but one Pinellas County. So while we serve the unincorporated areas, we really serve the entire county. There's also 18 fire districts, East Lake, St. Pete, Clearwater, all of that. And 12 law enforcement agencies, Pinellas Park, City, blah, 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 you know. So we try to coordinate all of them together, but yes, they're all doing it a little bit differently. But the one thing that is unified is access to shelters and how we do that coordination. So you may see, if you follow Pinellas Park, there's an emergency management person in Pinellas Park, right over by their city hall, the train station over there. They've got an emergency manager for the city of Pinellas Park. St. Pete does too, Clearwater does. For the county, they all come together with the county. They've done, let's see, 16 activations essentially in the past decade. Right now, this season, things are looking pretty good so far. We're up to Cristobal Sea, which is out in the middle of nowhere. It's actually headed towards Europe. It's going to fizzle out and disappear. There's two small little things they're kind of watching right now, but, and I'm not a meteorologist, but they are really confident that they're going to fizzle out because it's a little thing called El Nino. Again, I'm not a meteorologist, but they are very hopeful that we will have a low storm season. We'll see. Pinellas County is the second smallest county in the state, but it's actually the most densely populated. You know, we just have right under 1 million people here in Pinellas. And what that looks like is over 40 providers that are part of the CoC continuum of care. So whenever we're doing any of our messaging out to our shelters and unhoused residents and resource and programs, we're doing that and facilitating that communication with the Homeless Leadership Alliance. Also, 67% of the county is in an evac zone. So those who are housed, 67%. If it's a major serious, we haven't even seen that type of storm yet, honestly, here. It would be 67% of the county would have to evacuate or be told to evacuate. But there are 7 homeless emergency shelters in Pinellas. So we know, like St. Vincent de Paul, Salvation Army, HEB, Safe Harbor, these shelters that are across the county, and more than half of them are in AV evac zones. So every time there's a hurricane coming, more than likely they're going to shut down and have to evacuate. Salvation Army, Zone A. HEB, Zone A. They're going to have to, Safe Harbor is B. They're going to have to evacuate almost every time. And so we do the coordination with them, but we also work with all of our outreach teams. So, you know, here you have like Copeland, St. Pete's got PATH and outreach officers, or excuse me, PATH and outreach case managers that are going to work on getting that communication out. We're also pushing out your HOA in all of the different ways that we can. So there are at least, I'm going to say roughly 2,000 individuals in homeless emergency shelters or on the street that we know of at any given time. And when I say street, you know, I understand that could be vehicle, that could be on someone's porch, you know, there's different ways that, but I'm just going to just universally say street, okay, or unhoused. So I did have some slides which we're not able to project up. I think we can probably email this out after the boards, because I put some some QR codes there. I know not everyone's great with QR codes, but I thought it'd be better than a link. But there's some QR codes on basically if you are an individual whose house, there's a thing called an evac zone as well as a FEMA flood zone. Has anybody heard of those two different things? Those are two different things. So if it's a heavy rain event, you might get flooded out, like what was it, 2-3 weeks, a month ago. We had severe rain that dumped throughout St. Pete was drenched, is what I always saw. But then there's also storm surge, which is where the entire elevation actually will elevate as well. So you can sign up for emergency messaging for Alert Pinellas. There's an app as well as a text message that you can sign up for that we encourage everyone to sign up for, just like you get like the Amber alerts and things like that. But knowing your zone is really important. So let me see if I can find the page in here. Does it will match? There it is. So remember I said 67% of the county is in an evac zone. So that's what the little rainbow color is here. Mobile homes are mandatory evac. So our unhoused, our unsheltered are mandatory evac. If there's a storm coming, if you know someone that's in their vehicle, that's in a gully, that's in the woods, they need to be getting out because they're at severe risk of multiple different things, not just rain, wind, electrical issues, fire, all of those sort of things. So most of our county is in an evac zone, unless you're in that downtown, just north of downtown St. Pete, and then kind of the central Warren County. So don't wait. We tell people evacuate early, but a lot of the reality is a lot of us don't have options, right? So the solution may not be that I go to Miami or Atlanta or wherever, because that's going to take time and resources that I don't have, and that a lot of our unsheltered and our unhoused people experiencing homelessness also don't have. So what we do is we do offer shelters. And so we do offer sheltering. I'm going to get into the different types of sheltering. There is a website that shows all of our available shelters. So Pinellas County has, I want to say, 22 shelters across Pinellas County. Because one of them is Ponce de Leon Elementary, right when you get into St. Pete over 34th. That one's probably the last one to open. So if someone shows up there, they're probably going to have to go somewhere else. If it's a tropical storm, they may or may not open shelters, but schools will still be working and open and operating. So there's some rec centers too that we will open for smaller storms, typically for our mobile homes and our unhoused. So there may not be a mandatory evac, but there might be a kind of a safer wellness opportunity for people.
Right.
So that list does get updated. If the capacity, if the storm gets closer or further away, they'll open or close more. So actually, they won't close any early because the storm went away. They'll keep them open. So I want to tell you a little bit about the timeline of those involved. So this is the emergency management crew. This is honestly, the sheriff, the county administrator. There's some of the bigger mayors are on there, things like that. And so what their timeline looks like, my time too, is that they start watching things about a week out. So they're not looking when it's coming off of Africa, okay? Because it may take 2 weeks to get here. They're not getting ready and getting alert then, and I'm sure they're watching it. But when they see something as being less than 7 days out, that's when they're going to start to gear up and meet. And they determine what's called a best, mid, and worst case scenario, BMW, best, mid, worst, to say what is the storm going to do, who are the players, what's the evacuation, all of that. This committee makes a determination on that. They start meeting about 3 to 4 days before the storm to say what are we going to need. If it's a major storm with that, like the full color of evacuations, the D's and E's and all of that, then they have a whole, calculate a timeline of how early people need to evacuate and get out. So that will also determine when shelters open. Okay?
Just ask a really quick
Yeah.
question. Even though we have all of these different zones on here, if say we had a category 4 coming up in Pinellas County,
Mhm.
that means the whole of the county evacuates, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we went up to C for 2024. So think about Milton and Helene, those were only Cs. Okay?
All right.
And one of them, I gotta think now because they're all one to me. Milton, the first one, nope, Helene was the first one. Helene had the storm surge and Milton had the wind, remember?
Yeah.
So the beaches were all inundated and then all the power lines came down and trees came down. So yeah, the storm surge, you never know what's gonna do with that, but that's the highest storm surge we had. Okay, so that team relies on some shelters when they open. We utilize schools and like I said, a couple rec centers. So schools have to shut down for us to be able to move into those. And so we're gonna move into those. Whatever that level of evac is, that's how early those shelters are gonna open. So again, if it's a smaller storm, A only, it's probably 24 hours or so. But if it's a D or E evac, we're gonna be opening 2 or 3 days before. Okay? So that's some of the timeline and communication that's all coming out as part of that storm. So as we get closer, that committee and that group will start to get people in place and start to get supplies in place. We already have supplies like ready in the county, but then there's also additional supplies that come in from outside the county. Like I said, that committee will determine when shelters open, when evacuations start. If they determine an evacuation is happening, the shelters are absolutely going to open. It's just a matter of how many. So I think we had about 12 or so for Milton and Helene. And like I said, there's like 22 or so, but we didn't open all of them. Some shelters were inundated. I was at Largo High with over 3,000 individuals, and some schools just had a couple hundred. So. Shelters remain open through the duration of the storm, and then they immediately will start to shut down. And the reason they do that is because one of the things they say post-storm, post any disaster, right, is that getting back to normal, right? That like recovery period is imperative. And there's evidence that shows getting kids back to school allows parents to get back to their normal too. And so the routine that kids are used to and the structure that they have is really important. And so having the schools reopen is like #1 priority to be able to get that structure and like routine back into place. So that's one of the kind of that give and take that we're constantly working on with the schools. Because as soon as we move in, they're like, when you leave it. And they really are. So a little aggressive sometimes. So the one thing that you guys want to do, I want to give you guys this. I have plenty more just for you all to take home. Honestly, this library should have a bunch as well. But it talks about a lot of those different things of what the evac looks like, what a go kit should look like, what your where you could go or where you could not go, and kind of having a plan. I'm going to get into the types of sheltering now. Any questions so far still about like the process and bureaucracy? Okay, now I think this is what you guys really want is a shelter. And then I'm going to get into how we do it all with the shelters that are unhoused. So they're just kind of general info right now. So there's 3 main kinds of shelters that should be in here. Yeah. Okay, so it's on page 13. But there are general population shelters, special needs shelters, and pet-friendly shelters. Service animals can go anywhere, as always. Okay? You have a service animal, they can go anywhere. Does anyone know what qualifies? What are the type of service animals there are in the state of Florida? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's the approved ADA, and then there's also psychiatric.
Do you know what kind of animal? Like a cat, dog?
It's usually a canine.
It's a dog and a miniature pony. Okay? Yeah, in the state of Florida. Some states have more, but those are the only 2 Florida service animals. Emotional support animals, ESAs, are not service animals. And that gets a little feisty at these shelters, okay? I understand, I've got 2 cats. They do stay at home, I don't carry them around with me everywhere, but I have 2 cats, I love them, but they are my pets. So ESAs, emotional support animals, are not service animals. And so you may be able to get your dog in if they're well behaved and They'll ask you two questions, which is, does this animal help you in some way? And, but they're very, very vague. And you will just say, yeah, if they're a well-behaved dog, you're probably going to get by all right with your service, with your animal. But if you have a cat or a peacock or a ferret, they're not going to let that one fly, okay? So that's your general population shelter. They'll take everybody and anybody. Then you have your special needs shelter. That has two things: a registration for those who can pre-register and be like on that list. So someone who is housed who has transportation difficulties is also included in this group. You can get access to a shelter, transported to a shelter, or you have some medical vulnerabilities. And what I say is, if you need something to be plugged in or refrigerated, that's your easy go-to. If I got an oxygen tank, if I've got CPAP, nebulizer, motorized scooter, diabetes medic, insulin, those are special needs shelter, okay? Then we have the pet-friendly shelters, which honestly, they kind of overlap some of these shelters, but all it is that it has animal services on hand to help you and support you and your pet. What we do with our animal services is cats and dogs. The fancy animals and the ferrets, and we did have birds, honestly, but the fish, like, we're going to find something to do, but we had a jungle cat at shelter with us one time, like a exotic cat. And we actually worked with a partner agency to pick it up and foster it essentially for the storm. So we do that, but essentially your cats, dogs, I'm going to say birds too, even though that's not on paper, but I've seen about a bazillion birds at our shelter. They are kept in an area not where, they are not like boarding your animal, but they are housing your animal. You're responsible for going there, walking the animal, taking care of its cage and its essentials and all of that. But it is kept in a separate area from the general like bedding in the sleeping area, okay? So that's another thing when we get into that service animal versus emotional support animal versus pet. If it's not a service animal, it is going to be staying in that pet area for you to visit with it. You can take it for walks, you can sit with it in that area, take it outside, but it does stay in that area. When you get to shelter, you're given 3 meals a day. These are like their minimum meals though. So, I mean, basically, the school is turning their cafeteria into an emergency shelter. So it's cafeteria food, school, like what their school lunch would be, okay? So there's also not going to be like dietary if you're, want low sugar or liquid. Yeah, there's not going to be any of those kind of accommodations. Yes, do you have a question? Am I going too long? Yeah, that's the full list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what I was talking about. I'll print out a bunch and I'll bring it and circulate it. Everybody get a copy.
Yeah. And then, so let me see. I have a picture here. I'm going to go ahead and show it just so you guys can see. Has anyone been at a hurricane shelter before? All right. Where were you at? The one in the Exchange, so like the county building? The school. Yeah, there's a school in the back. It has train tracks and
28th Street, that's what's happening south there. That happens.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the one
It was a
intermediate.
horrible experience.
Yeah.
The bathrooms got plugged up 2 days after you were there. We asked them if they could put porta potties, and they're like, no.
Is that Milton? The last storm that we had? So all the St. Pete shelter water, and every single St. Pete shelter lost water. Yeah. We can talk about that too.
I was at Largo High School.
Hi, Ruby!
Largo High School, and over here at the, last year, the Methodist clinic there, what's it called?
Oh yeah, you guys are over in the Methodist church? All right. Where were you? And that's where you were at the
No, I was at Safe Harbor, Pod 2.
Safe Harbor. So they ended up evacuating, not for Helene, but for Milton they evacuated.
They didn't at the time. We waited out.
They evacuated
We sat there at the
from
back
Yeah,
window.
Pinellas CoC evacuated for
Yeah.
both, but
They
Safe
were in
Harbor
Largo High
also
School, yeah.
evacuated at one. Yeah, so that's the picture I wanted to show you. You see the gym on the bottom? That's the reality of a shelter. The shelter is an empty room or a classroom with all the classroom equipment pushed up against the wall. This top picture is your special needs shelter. Okay? There's not going to be bedding where you go, as you know. As you know. There is a floor. Okay?
Just the street.
So what's our,
It's like the street.
yes, just like the street. But a lot of times there are people who are housed mobile home, so they go there going like, I'm here, and you're like, where's your stuff, right? And so in this, there is kind of a list of basic supplies, but we realize that most people that are accessing these shelters may not have those supplies. I stay at the shelter when I work them. I bring an air mattress, I bring a blanket, I bring a suitcase with multiple changes of clothes, but we understand that that may not be available to everybody.
I encourage bug out bags. One
Bug out
bag,
bags? Yeah,
copy all your medications, some food stuff items.
yeah,
If you need special stuff, well, you just grab the bag and go.
yes, I do have a go bag, for
Yeah.
sure. All season long, because again, we could be called at any time. So let me see what else I have in here. Storm surge, got that. Shelters. Okay. So this also talks about ways to secure your home and secure your belongings. Gary brought up a great point. Take photos. Take the copies of things that are really important with you. If you are, whether you're, in an encampment or in a home, take those things with you and have them on your person, and take photos of them. And if you even email them to yourself, because even if your phone dies, it's waterlogged, you can still log in and see your email, right? So there's different ways to do that. All right, special needs shelters, we talked about that, anything that kind of needs to hook up, plugged in, who's eligible. So if you are unhoused, unsheltered, on the street, or in a homeless emergency shelter, special needs population, we coordinate that evacuation as well. So I still haven't gotten into what that coordination looks like, but those for general population, so we mentioned like Pinellas CoC, they're always going to have to evacuate. So we're going to evacuate them as a group, and we're going to send them to a general population and a special needs population. Same thing with Salvation Army, HEP, and let me see one, Safe Harbor.
So the homeless population, they are considered special needs in our statute?
Some are.
Some are,
Yeah.
okay, so it's again, based on medical necessity?
Yes, the shelter, yeah, the shelter does that basic triage of screening for us.
Okay.
Yeah. So pet-friendly shelters, I mentioned that they're exotic animals. We're going to work with a partner agency. We are going to bring your pet food, carry your leash if you have those items, but you're not going to be denied. You're not going to be refused or turned away. We don't want you leaving your dog tethered in the woods because you don't have food for it or you're afraid to bring it somewhere. Same thing with shot records. We do want you to have the shots up to date, but again, don't leave your animal somewhere because you're afraid to bring it to shelter. Bring it, we will figure it out, okay? Remember I talked about the basic needs? This is the list of all the things they recommend to bring to a shelter. No, that's not gonna happen. That's not the reality. You're literally given 20 square feet, which is like this corner to this corner here. It's a twin size bed is 20 square feet. That's how much room you could be squashed down to in a shelter. Okay? So again, your vital, your basic needs, what you need most of all. And so what I said is medicine, vital documents, a water bottle to refill. Of course, if water gets turned off, that's a whole other story. But water bottle to refill, multiple change of clothes if you can, a washcloth. I took a lot of bird baths during those 2 storms. Toothbrush, toothpaste, those basic items that you have. There's no shower access at these shelters. And then if you're able to, things like a portable charger, if you have a power bank, flashlight, and some of those other items. So that will be emailed out to you guys on kind of what I say is the shorter list, but obviously that list might not be doable either. Transportation, PSTA, the buses become free. Once that evacuation is called, buses are free, okay? But they will stop when the winds get up to 40 miles an hour, so don't wait till the last minute. I know.
It's just based on the wind speed and not how many, the time factor till projected landfall?
Not really the time factor, it's the wind. So once they get above 40, they're gonna take the buses offline, because they
Okay.
actually have to drive them out of county to put them somewhere safe.
I've fielded a lot of questions about people wondering just how long the buses run, you know, because, of course, they're trying to gather up the most important, you know, and, you know, they've switched into survival mode, and they, you know, a lot of times they'll get to the bus late. And I was just curious, you know, what's the factor involved? Is it,
It's
you know?
purely the wind, which again, every storm is different, how slow or quick it gets there.
Right.
Right? So it's really once those winds get above 40, which I mean, I've seen at least 12 hours before the storm, what I would say, like before the impact time, but sometimes faster than that.
That's something that's manageable, because if you got a storm coming and you're packing, you are very aware of how much the trees are blowing. You know it's blowing 40 degrees, you know, 40 miles an hour, you know it. Versus, you know, it's trying to match a, you know, time factor.
And in the past, there were certain spots you had to catch the bus. Now it's every single stop becomes free, okay?
Right.
So keep that in mind. Every single
I
stop
remember
will
that.
become free, and they should even tell you the route to the closest one. So like here, let's see, you probably would go to Largo, honestly, from here. Because this is, you know, when you look in that map, this part is, can be a little,
Or with people trying to get prepared for it, if they had to look at the master list, they could, okay, these are the top 4 in my area I can get to.
yeah, but those 4 might not be open.
I know.
That's why you gotta be really careful. And I'll say with the storm, with Helene Milton, we knew that we were anticipating them shutting down the water. We thought it might happen. So our special needs shelter in St. Pete, we moved it to Clearwater. So there was no special needs. They all got moved north to a school that wasn't even on that list because they were anticipating that the water being cut off. But Gibbs and some other schools were still open down there because St. Pete is huge and it's a lot closer for a lot of people. But yeah, they lost water for I think 24, maybe 48 hours, and it was a big deal with toilets.
Yeah, after 2 days, you couldn't flush them. There was stuff all over the floors, all over the toilet, all over the floors. You really couldn't even go to the bathrooms.
Yeah, this year they are actually working on having basically porta potties on standby.
Yeah, we asked them about that, they're like,
Yeah,
they were very.
well, porta potties would have taken days to come in from the state, like, because they were all out of state basically. So it would have taken days, and like, you guys would already been closed by that time. Was part of the issue, but I was in Largo, I didn't have the water issue, but we're all kind of like, what's going on, right? Waiting there with you. So the same form, like I said, Alert Pinellas, that is, I think on this one, yeah, this is Ready Pinellas, which has the app and Alert Pinellas. So again, I'm gonna leave all these resources with you guys. I feel like I've talked for too long. Oh, now it's the homeless part. So the homeless coordination. So remember I told you about the timeline of like the big waves, right? They start looking at it 7-ish days out. They start telling me, hey Dominique, 5 days out, okay? But honestly, I'm already watching it. I'm already keeping an eye on it because my daughter's birthday's in October and 2 of her birthdays have been canceled or rescheduled because of storms. So I'm always watching those storms because it can really mess your day up, all right? You know that, mess your life up, to be honest. So, all right, so about 5 days out, we will start an email. That email is sent out through the Homeless Leadership Alliance, the CoC. So as part of being on this committee, you should be getting those emails. There was like a weather alert maybe a month and a half ago where it's just going to be severe weather anticipated. You guys should have all gotten that email if you get the CoC emails. We will send that out to every person that is on the CoC emailing list. So all those agencies that help, all the libraries that are signed up for it, the shelters, start saying, hey, there's something out there, right? So about 5 days we'll start that, and we'll start a virtual meeting to anyone on the CoC is invited to come. Most of it is an audience participation though, but it will give you kind of in the know. But we're going to ask for status updates from our emergency shelters and some of those supporting places like Daystar, Safety Free Clinic, Hope Villages of America, like those places that people go to, a Park and Shepherd Center, St. Vincent de Paul. We're going to be asking for updates on how their operations are doing, when they're shutting down, do they need support, can they support a shelter that may be staying in place, are people ready, and starting to get that messaging out. 3 days ahead of time, we're going to start passing out those blue cards. I hope you guys have seen that before, over the years. But all of our street outreach teams pass these out. Also, the library should have them here, but most of the libraries have those blue cards as well. That's like the nitty gritty. Thank you. That is the small version of this video magazine, okay? This is really the important stuff. So make a plan, buses are free, special needs and pets. No ID is needed. Undocumented, everything, no, there's no ID, okay? We're not running warrants and background checks and all that either. I've had that question before. There will be police around, but we're not gonna be asking all those things. We're not checking pockets, we're not checking belongings, but it is a school, so it's drug-free and weapon-free. But we're not opening your bag, okay?
How many wheels on each side?
Depends on the size of the school and the area.
Okay.
Largo has a lot.
Right.
They show up, Largo. They show up. But where you probably were, Hamlin probably didn't have that many.
Actually, they ended up with people in the hallway, and they had my female veteran registered the day before, and she had to go back and get some medicine, so when she came the next day, there really wasn't room for her in the room. We had a classroom with like 8 women, but we had to I had to speak up, and we had to find a place for her, and she had registered the day before.
Nobody should register. They should come in and move in, basically, because of
She had
that.
to go back and she's a female
That's true.
veteran,
Yeah.
and she had to go back and get some medicine where she was.
That happens all the time. And people can go do their work shift, and people can cover their belongings. So if people try to like register, like they're doing a reservation, that won't work.
They told
Yeah.
us to register. They wanted us to register. So we went in and registered on the day. I stayed. She had to go back and get her medicine because she had just been in the
Yeah.
hospital.
But now you know why it was hard when she came back, because they shouldn't have done that, but it's okay, I mean, it happened, right? You guys figured it out.
Stuff over, and I
Yeah.
actually took astroturf out of my car and put it on the table for one lady because she couldn't bend down to get on the floor. So she slept on my astroturf on the table.
Wow.
It was very challenging. I even had to fix the air conditioning. Standing on the table to fix the air conditioning. Yeah, it was it's not easy.
No.
It was
One of the analogy I normally use, it's a life raft on a cruise ship. It is not going to be like a nice experience. Some people actually enjoy it. I've done shelters in Virginia. When I lived up there, people are like, this is the best week of my life. And I'm like, no, it is not. But it was 110 degrees outside. Nobody had power. But yeah, so, but yes, it is not comfortable. It is not the planned thing, right?
It is not.
Ideally, we want people to leave town, but again, people don't have the resources for that.
And if you have senior citizens, I'm 71, and I babysit about 10 veterans for free and old people. If you're a senior citizen and the bathrooms aren't working, you need to pre, like now, I bought the locked trunks that you can buy at Walmart with the wheels and the lock on them, and I've already got it packed with hurricane stuff. But if you're a senior citizen, you might have to have pull-ups, you might have to have pads, you might have to have wipes, which can take up a whole crate, and they're heavy. So, thank God I was in that room with that woman, because I'm not trying to take any credit, but I pretty much, like I said, I knew how to stand on the table and fix the air conditioner and put astroturf on the table so they would sleep on it because she couldn't get on the ground. And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
It was terrible.
It was not fun at all.
We had a baby born in our shelter too this past Milton, so, yeah. So going back to kind of our timeline, so 3 days before we are gathering the census of all those shelters. So I'm going to use the storms that we've been talking about. Helene was an A evac only, so Safe Harbor didn't evacuate, but HEP, Pinellas CoC, and Salvation Army did. So I'm talking to their management to say, how many do you have for general pop? How many special needs? How many pets? And so we're getting that information, and then most of those shelters allow people to leave. Hey, you want to go to your cousins, your buddy, your boyfriend, whatever. And so they may lose people, but save their spot. Okay. And also, obviously, it's like a full event. They got to pack up everything regardless. Okay. So, but they allow people to leave as well on their own and make their own plan. But for those who have to evacuate, we will do a mass pickup of people. We get specific buses to go pick them up. What we're doing with our street outreach teams, so those who are unsheltered in their vehicles, things like that, we're asking all of our outreach teams to start passing these out about 3 days before. Stop enforcing and pushing people on and out, right? And start telling and notifying them of the storm that's coming. Make sure they know, start following or listening, okay? Then we go to less than 48 hours out. We will then have typically evacuation planned and scheduled. Outreach is still out there trying to get people into sheltering. They'll notify them what shelters are actually open at that point, and making sure people are getting on the bus. Any of that kind of critical information. We're also going to start meeting daily, like I just mentioned. If it's 5-6 days out, we may meet once, wait a day or two to see how the storm goes. But if we're 2-3 days away from the storm, we're going to start meeting every day. Virtually to kind of give those status updates. Are you closing? Are you moving? How are things looking? Things like that. I already mentioned the buses are free to get to shelter, but typically getting back when shelters close is a little bit more challenging. So those buses are outside of town. They have to come back into town. They also have to drive every single route to make sure it's safe. So typically leaving the shelter can be a little bit more challenging. What we did this past year, which well, in 24, it was a little messy, is we kind of did like groupings. So at my shelter, it was like, hey, this bus, again, I was in Largo. We had one bus that's like, we actually had a group of people that want to go to Tampa. And I was like, I can't get you to Tampa, but I will get you to Oldsmar, Walmart. You know, like I will get you to the edge of county, and if you want to keep walking, you can. We got sent a bus to Tarpon, sent a bus to Largo Central Park too. Well, that would have been too close from there actually. But to Williams Park and different places like that where people could kind of get closer to home and then ride home or walk home. Also, Uber typically offers a free code, but you have to have an Uber account and all of that, which sometimes people don't have. So we do try to get people back to their area and back in where they're at. During the storm, people are going to hunker down and shelter. We're going to continue those 3 meals a day. If weather gets bad enough, we may do what's called shelter in place, where we're going to ask people to remain in their buildings, not leave their buildings, remain not necessarily the rooms, bathrooms, all that's fine, but most schools are multi-building. Stay in their building and try not to go outside, and that's because of how strong the wind and rain and everything that's going on outside. We're going to keep. We're also going to maintain that daily email. So again, if you have that COC email, that's going to help you out. It's going to give kind of the nuts and bolts. There's a lot of fake AI stuff out there. There's a lot of social media hype. Like make sure that you're following like real credible resources, okay? And not stress that out. And after the event, we're going to continue those daily meetings. As soon as that storm has passed, we're asking shelters to go and assess their shelters for damage. So like Salvation Army, after Helene was, it took a while for the water to recede. HEP, actually, their manager, one of their staff that was responsible for going to check the facility had a tree fall through her car. So they had to get other staff together to go get the keys and then go check their facility. So as soon as that storm has passed, we are asking all of our shelters to go out there and check their facilities and locations, just so that we can return residents to the shelter. They're also going to tell us if they have extra capacity. So for somebody who was on the street in their car, vehicle, whatever, and they want to enter homeless emergency shelter, we're going to try and have that option available. We're not going to send people that were housed, though, to a homeless emergency shelter. Most of the time, then there'll be step-down shelters that open. So we work with the Red Cross to operate those step-down shelters. And then they're staffed by us as well. So that's what happened after Helene. We opened a rec center and I think a church. Red Cross ended up coming into town and took over those shelters. Then Milton came, we opened all the shelters again. And then when Milton ended, we consolidated back to the one school and one church. And we ended up having to actually move churches a couple of times after the last storm. So any questions you guys have? I know that was a lot. Might not have been exactly what you wanted. I was told kind of emergency management and homeless. Questions? I left you speechless. Did I bore you?
On page 17, the phone numbers, what kind of what is that organization which gives information on, on who can help with like outdoor damage and so on?
Yeah, that's probably the damage assessment crews, so they are,
Assessment?
yeah, so, I don't know without calling it, but that's our general Pinellas County Emergency Management number. So there's going to be volunteer organizations sometimes on site, as well as agencies that are there. So like we had individuals who they were like our medical team that were in special needs, and so fire went by their house to make sure the power was on before we sent the medical special needs individuals home. So there's a whole coordination that happens with volunteers and the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if there's any outdoor damage, from or on the property, what organization can you call who helps with that?
Well, that number will get you
This
somebody.
one?
Yes.
Oh, that would be.
Yeah, so he's really talking about the damage, like the aftermath of the storm. How can you get help? There's a lot of volunteer organizations that come in. I'll tell you one that I really liked is called the Cajun Navy, and they actually came out during Katrina as an aftermath of Katrina, but they actually came down here, and there was a high rise in Pasadena. I want to say it was 20 stories without an elevator and power, and they carried they went up to everybody's rooms, got essential belongings, brought them back, but typically they're like in the boat, like rescuing people, so I love it. And then Team Rubicon is a bunch of former military people, and they come and like chop all the trees, like the massive trees are blocking the whole road. They come in, so there's a lot of volunteer organizations that activate post-storm. Yeah. Or you guys remember Tropicana, the roof blew off and they had all those beds in there? Those are for all those teams that come into town. So they were coming into town they were coming into town to support, like be ready to go. Same thing with Duke, like they were ready to do their repairs, and that's why the roof blew off. So that was never shelter for like general people, it was shelter for all the support teams that come in for storm. Any other questions?
Just like FEMA, I was in a trashy trailer, so that's why I had to go to that school. The carport blew down, I couldn't even get my door open when I went back because the carport was in front of the door. So they tore the carport down, and my illegal blah 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 landlady, where I'm not even there anymore, I'm homeless. She got a bunch of money from FEMA, but she didn't repair the trailer. She didn't put the carport back up. So you have a lot of people getting money from FEMA, and I know FEMA can approach you and say, where are your receipts for the money that you got?
They can't come back after you.
She's a crook, and I'm not even there anymore, and she never replaced the carport. She never did any of the repairs with the money that she got for any of the trashy trays on the property, But I think FEMA needs to be a little more strict as far as giving people money and following up on did you spend money on what you chose.
Yeah, and that's federal, so I mean, they come in, they're one of those teams that come in to support. You have to show a lot of cause, a lot of proof to show who you are. You can get, as a renter, you can also get assistance from FEMA. Now, it's time once expired, but you can get your basic items replaced and some of your rent assistance and all of that. Pinellas County and the city of St. Pete both receive funds to help with just long-term recovery, so things like bridges and water infrastructure and things like that. But also they've got a home buyers, they have a home buyers program. The rental assistance is currently on pause, like they're full for both St. Pete and the county, but that just closed or paused at the end of July. But there's still homeowners like existing homeowners and new homeowners assistance available. And I know there'll be more rollout with that too. So keep an eye out for that. Any other questions? Sorry if that was too much. We'll get the slides out too, and it has a lot of the QR codes for the things. But again, sign up for Alert Pinellas, that's the push notifications and app. And then knowing your zone for if you said you were on house right now, or in your vehicle, are you leveled up? Do you mind me asking?
My vehicle.
You're in your vehicle, so
Barely running.
your vehicle is treated as a mobile home. That's a mandatory evac, okay? Just like you evacuated last time. But if you are, same thing, if you're in the woods, if you are hunker down somewhere, more than likely you need to evacuate or go to somebody who has a safe, adequate housing.
I stay at the church, I sleep over at church, and I got my Puerto Rican friend, she stays in her car.
Yeah, you guys need to go somewhere, yeah, so that you're not stuck.
You'll have the information I found.
And again, every bus becomes free, so that means once those evac orders are called, buses are free until the winds get too strong. So I'd say probably the closest shelter here is probably the Leland Exchange, which is like 54th and probably 50th or so.
Actually, 43rd. Yeah.
43rd? Yeah, I was like just west of 34th, that's all I know.
Yeah, right there with the railroad track.
Yeah, right, railroad tracks, yeah. That's probably the closest one here that opens pretty regularly. And then, like I said, up by me, Largo. Your big ones are Largo, High, Gibbs, and Palm Harbor University. Those are your three big guys. And those
You guys know
Right,
what, sorry?
Staff doesn't live in Pinellas?
The staff does?
You got staff?
Yeah, I live in Clearwater, yeah. I lived in St. Pete, during Helene and Milton, I live in Clearwater now. Yeah, Pinellas County staff, I work in human services. Our entire department has to respond to storms, so like I go to shelter every single storm.
Sorry.
That's an excellent presentation.
All right, well, you guys got all the resources. I have a bunch of these green bags. I'm just gonna leave them if you guys wanna, you can add to your bike ministry, sorry, your bike group, or take these with you. And then I've got a bunch of flyers and cards back there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dominique.
What is your first name?
Donnie.
The biggest thing is that we don't, it's not like we're gonna be sending you out like salesmen or Jehovah's Witnesses. You have the information with you and know it. Then when you're out there amongst your friends and in the community, you have the information to hand out. And we want you to have the right information. There's been a couple storms where I've actually gotten a phone call. This is way back when Victoria was here, and people were encouraging us. And that started right at the storm, and we want to try to avoid that. We have to clear off the Carrie's presentation. The showers are delayed over at Elevated due to, I would say it would be clerical stuff, getting some of the paperwork right. But it's moving forward. Does anybody have any new services that they've become aware of, or anything yet they'd like to share with the rest of us? Okay? All right, for those that have not met her, everyone, this is Cece for Cupcake. And she is Silas's new master.
That is indeed correct. Cookie girl.
Has anybody noticed any places that they think would be a good place to have our resource books, but didn't see any there? Anyone? But it's a place that there should be resource books that would be advantageous to the community, but we didn't see any there. So I plan to go down and check by the library, on the main St. Pete Library, see if they got some down there.
There's a few in the church now,
All right.
maybe two or three over there, there's not many at all.
Okay. Yeah, well, we had plans for the strategic plan overview and that, which is more of Sherry's forte, but as I said earlier, she had to be out tonight to deal with some family emergency, so we're gonna have to table that. Basically means that we're gonna put that off to another meeting time. So, I think we pretty well covered everything we can cover. I am going to, since we don't have quorum, we still, even with Sally showing up, we're still shy, right?
No, I think it's 4. Yeah, it's 4.
Okay, we're trying to, we had 2 motions, we were gonna call a vote for the minutes. Tyler, would you like to look over the minutes of last meeting? I only found one small discrepancy, and it don't even matter where it states the bike ministry Debbie is helping me with is an electric bike, and it's not, it's a manual. But that's minor. That's someone's not even gonna change it.
Another thing that my husband and I have started doing this month, if you have anyone that you know that is in the community and needs pet food, please get a hold of Gary, get a hold of me, and I will be happy to.
Oh, yeah. Her and her husband are doing a ministry for people that need pet food, dog food, and cat food, in hopes that they can't afford to feed their animal. The animal will not end up being surrendered to a shelter. At least they can help you out with some food. And right now, some people are choosing between feeding their pet or eating a meal themselves. So, if there's any way we can be of assistance, let us know. Let me know, and we'll get a hold of Deb, and we'll arrange to meet up or something. Okay? So if one of your friends or somebody is in need of it, you can also come by the Northside Baptist Church food pantry, and they have dog and cat food as well as cat litter there. So for somebody that needs that, they don't have to necessarily be homeless, just out there struggling. We stop by there. I think we pretty well covered everything, because without that presentation and that, it pretty well cut it short. But how does everybody feel about cutting the meeting short? Any objections? Anyone for a motion to call the meeting a little early? I expected that.
I know, because you didn't call me earlier.
Anyone? I'm calling for a motion to cut this meeting finish a little early, and we all get out of here a little earlier tonight. Any seconds? Planet Earth to make your town. All right. Okay, then I got a real one for you. I'm going to pull on that note. I'm going to pull the executive privilege. Let's call this meeting to an end at 6:35, and we can get done a little earlier tonight. How's that?
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you all for coming. There's a couple loopholes in our plan tonight, so please forgive that, but we will get back to something a little more